Hello, everyone, and welcome to your next episode of What's Your Mess? Mental, Emotional, Social Status of Life. I'm your host, Tracey D. Armstrong, and today we embark on another journey with a new guest as she shares her experiences that have shaped her life and have been triumphs to show her resilience and strength. So today, let's welcome to the stage. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hi, Tracy. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for this opportunity. I've been so excited about connecting with you and just chatting. So, I'm Courtney Robinson. I'm a personal stylist, a mentor, and an advocate for women. And I empower women to embrace their truest selves through faith inspired fashion. And so, my business, Image by Courtney, is really dedicated to helping women leaders blend their unique style of purpose with fostering confidence, aligning their wardrobe with their purpose and their calling. I've been a personal stylist for over 7 years. I have a 20-year corporate career. And really, I'm just all about empowering women to step boldly into their purpose, to get rid of that imposter syndrome and embrace their inherent worth. So that's a little bit about me. Thank you for having me.
I'm excited already. I'm a fashion person. You don't know, but I love to shop and I just love looking good. But besides that, I'm excited to hear about everything that you do, that you have. But I know that that hasn't always been where you are at right now. So, can you tell the listeners a little bit more about your mess or the situations that you've gone through and you've overcome?
Absolutely. I actually get joy out of sharing my story because there is so much resilience that is shown. And I know that that encourages and inspires other people. So for me, one of the most challenging and transformative experience that has happened in my life was just dealing with a series of healthcare, issues. And so I was diagnosed with multiple benign brain tumors in January of 2021, actually four. So I underwent brain surgery in March of 21. And then a little over a year later, I faced several strokes in my sleep in December of 2022. So as you can imagine, all of that was very disruptive, right, to my life and scary and a whole lot of things. And so, um, from my career to my business goals to my personal goals, it all really challenged me mentally, emotionally, socially, all the things we're going to talk about today. It was interesting. Thankfully, when I experienced it, I was in a really strong place in my faith walk, right? So I remember the doctor, my family, everybody saying, "Gosh, this is probably the best time. You're so healthy." But not only was I healthy physically, I was healthy mentally, right? And so I approached it as, "Okay, Lord, I know you got me. I know that you're going to help me get through this." But nonetheless, there was, this underlying fear, right? The fear of the unknown and what that really means, and the fact that they could only really perform brain surgery on one tumor. They couldn't get them all at the same time because they're in different places. And so, just the prospect of how am I going to live with this? How does this impact my life? I didn't know what it really meant because at that point, nothing catastrophic had happened. We caught it. It was a routine eye exam. The ophthalmologist caught it, sent me for a CT scan and then a follow-up MRI. Um, and I remember the neurosurgeon saying, "We caught this early." Most times, and he wasn't joking. He's like, most times when people come in, their eye is literally falling out of the socket, type thing. And he was like, "So you're good, you're good." And so it was interesting, right? You want to do all the research, you want to know that the doctor that you're working with, the neurosurgeon, is safe, you want to trust the process and all of that. And all of that is just, you have to be rooted in God. I can't imagine not having my faith to get me through that time. People are good. My husband was wonderful, my mom, my friends. But if I didn't have that relationship with God, if I didn't have that foundation, I really don't know where I would be right now. So that's my mess. That's what I have gone through since January of 2021, basically through now, because, living with 4 brain tumors because they weren't able to get all of the one that they actually performed the craniotomy on. It's still part of it is still there. It wasn't like it was this nice little circle, right? It's kind of all over the place. And because it was sitting on my optic nerve, they weren't really able to get close to that without severing my vision. The interesting thing about this whole story is I don't have full vision in my right eye. I only have peripheral vision. I do not have core vision in my right eye. The blessing in that is that I can still drive. If it were the opposite, I wouldn't be able to drive. And can you imagine losing that ability and that freedom? You know?
Wait a minute. Pause. Time out. Because I'm sitting here. And everybody, they can't see me and you can see my face, and but I'm sitting here listening to, and I don't mean to cut you off, but I have to
Oh, it's
jump
fine.
in really quickly
It's a
because
chat.
you're saying, and I'm over here like, okay, first of all, you look amazing. First of all, let me just make sure I
Oh,
say that.
thank
I'm
you.
listening to you say you had 4 brain tumors and you underwent brain surgery. And I'm over here like, okay. And then okay, let me go back because you unpacked a lot.
Yeah,
Let's just
I
make sure
did.
that the listeners understand what you're saying. You went
Sure.
in for an eye exam.
Hmm.
The optometrist saw
Ophthalmologist.
the ophthalmologist, thank you,
Hmm.
saw the tumor on the X-ray, like when they do they could see it in the brain, in the back of the eye.
Well, no, what he saw is that my vision was really impaired. And so he said to me, you're blind in your right eye. And I literally laughed. It was a nervous laughter, but I literally laughed because I was like, what is this man talking about? Like, I don't even get regular eye exams because I have
Hmm.
20/20 vision. So I'm trying to think, it was probably like 5 years since my last eye exam.
Hmm. Hmm.
And I'm thinking, what happened in 5 years, that I go from having 20/20 vision in both eyes to being declared blind or visually impaired in this right eye. And because it was during COVID, I wasn't doing a lot of makeup, right? I wasn't, we were home. I already worked from home anyway, but I wasn't doing a lot of the things. And so that coupled with the fact that our bodies are just amazing, and this left eye made up for everything that the right eye
Hmm.
wasn't doing.
Hmm.
I just didn't see it. My husband was actually the first person who noticed. He said to me, "Did you bump your eye or something?" I remember it so vividly. And I said, "No, what do you mean?" He said, "Your eye just looks a little, I don't know, different." And, I didn't think anything of it. But because I work from home and I'm behind the computer all the time, my eyes would get tired, things or whatever. I was like, let me just go for a routine eye exam, check it out. There's no harm in seeing what's going on. And thank goodness I did, right?
Yes.
My husband actually discovered that in like September of October, right, of 2020. And I couldn't get an eye exam until January.
That's right.
Like literally couldn't get an eye exam until January. So it was on Martin Luther King Day was my appointment. That was the day that I found out. And it just changed the trajectory of my life.
And then they sent you for a CAT scan.
Hmm.
And then the CAT scan picked it up. And then
Hmm.
from there, they were like, because I know like a tumor could have done anything. Like it could have,
Right.
it could have caused an aneurysm.
Right.
And that's why they said they caught it early. So, and like you said, you were rooted in your faith, and good thing you were rooted in your faith at that time. But still, even with that,
Mhm.
how did it affect you mentally?
Well, here's the thing. So I'm that go-getter. I'm that energizer bunny. I'm that person who, everybody can depend on me. I'm the overachiever. I'm the one who does everything for everybody else, right? And
Mhm.
so building a business and working a career and just being married and maintaining a household, I just think I was just on this autopilot. So when this happened, it literally forced me to slow down and to say, okay, like assess myself and say, first of all, you're doing too much. You can't even physically, so you're going to have to slow down after surgery. It just really, to answer your question, it was really just, um, my mind just kind of went to a different place. But for me, it was how did I handle it in the midst of that? I really had to slow down and realize that I wasn't superwoman. I had to tap into my support network, right? And realize that it was okay if I had these feelings of not being able to perform and meet the same standard, right? Of
Mhm.
what I'm used to doing and the rate at which I'm used to going. That was particularly hard for me because I don't like to have to ask for anything. There's nothing wrong with it. Now, on the other side of this, I realized the importance of being able to advocate for yourself and to speak up for the things that you need and you want or you desire. But before that, I was just kind of like, oh, I got it.
Mhm. Mhm.
It's good, type thing. And when this happened, I didn't. I didn't have it, I mean, I had my faith and naturally I was praying probably more than ever. Um, but there was a lot of inner turmoil, right? Like, I went through that. Why me? Why now? What did I do? Why do I deserve this? Type thing. And, Lord, you know what I prayed for. I was really at the beginning of getting ready to do some really pivotal things in my business.
Mhm.
And it just literally cut everything off. So mentally, that was hard.
Right, right.
Hard.
And that's what I was going to ask next about the emotional, but with what you just said, like the inner turmoil of, hey, why, like, what is really going, I could, like, I'm hearing you speak on it, and I'm literally like, I couldn't imagine
Mm.
having, like you said, everybody was depending on you. You were on autopilot, been there before. And then all of a sudden you're having to just say, hey, pause. This is not where you're going right now at this moment. So
Exactly.
emotionally, talk about that a little bit.
Um, so I was just having this conversation with my husband the other day. I'm probably the most stable, emotional person I know. Like, nothing's wrong with crying, but I'm not a crier. So that if I'm crying, something's really wrong, right? Like
Hmm.
I'm not someone who will cry at the drop of a hat. I'm usually just not that emotional. I'm more even keeled. But oh my goodness, I mean, it really impacted me on a level where, first of all, I was very grateful that I had the resources to seek the best doctors, right?
Hmm.
And get the best treatment and the best care. That is not lost on me because a lot of people don't have that.
That's right.
And I know that's a real key factor in my ability to, that helped me through this as well, is having access to things that a lot of people don't have. So that was one thing. Um, but then just feeling I felt a little bit sorry for myself in the beginning at
Mhm.
some point, right? Because I was like, now I'm going to have to miss out at work. I was actually vying for a promotion at work and I wasn't going to be able to do that. I was performing really well. I was on some projects that I was really excited about. And then having to tell my manager and my team that I had to step away from that. And, I didn't have to share the gravity of what I was going through. But I trusted my team and I did. And everyone was super supportive. But it was it was really hard when you're an assertive, and very just the type of person who is so like into personal growth and professional development and all the things and growing and going from glory to glory for just to be like level set, right?
Yeah.
And brought down and just been like, I just had to sit down. Like
Mhm.
somebody just said, sit down.
Sit down somewhere. And
Exactly.
and so that was next. So, like, socially, did you have to sit down somewhere in that aspect too, or were you still able to, like, socially do the things that you had been doing?
Mm-mm.
Oh,
After brain surgery, I mean, first of all, I live in a house with 3 stories. We have a basement and then a main floor. And so our bedroom was on the second floor. And they told me, you don't need to be doing up and down the stairs and that type of thing. They did an assessment after I had brain surgery to make sure that, like, occupationally, I could do the things that I needed to do. But literally, all they wanted me to do was bathe, use the restroom, and stay in bed,
mhm.
literally, take my medicine, and that was it. And that's what they told my husband, and he was dead set on making sure that was it. If I would go to the landing at the stairs and go, "Honey," he'd be like, "Yeah." I'd be like, "I want to come downstairs." And he'd be like, "No."
Mm-mm.
He'd be like, "Just stay in bed. Like, you have everything
Go
you
sit
need up
down
there.
somewhere.
Go to town." But I mean, it was that type of thing, like, for someone who's always on the go to
Mhm.
have that taken away from you and just not being able to do it. So no, I mean, my body needed so much rest. So I was
Mhm.
sleeping 10 or 12 hours a day, and behind taking this medication that did not make me feel well. When you've got medication
Mhm.
in your system, you just don't feel like yourself, right?
Right.
So there
Mhm.
was, a portion that I had to take for a while before, that was just related to the surgery,
Right.
before that was over. But then other things started to creep in, like, headaches and brain fog and things that I had not really experienced before that. Right.
Mhm.
So it was just, learning that I was gonna be different afterward, and that different didn't mean worse. It just meant that I was gonna have to be gentle with myself, right?
Mm.
And,
Mm.
just embrace that healing. But yeah, so I mean, even I remember having a call scheduled, and I don't remember what call it was, and I couldn't do Zoom, and I told her that I was like, I can talk to you on the phone, but really the way I look, I'm not comfortable having a Zoom meeting. I don't even know if my staples were still out yet. That was the other thing, is like visually, you
Mm.
know, well, after you have surgery and they had to put like physical staples in my head.
Mhm.
So I know you can see, they can't see, but they actually cut from here all the way over here. Okay. And I have a metal plate in there. And, yeah. So I remember it was 30, was it like 32 staples? And I had to go get them taken out like 2 weeks after
Mhm.
surgery. So my husband took me, we had a follow-up appointment. And all I could remember thinking on the way was, is this going to hurt? Like, is this going to hurt? Kind of thing. And that was the first question I asked him when I got in there. I felt like I needed to brace myself. And she goes, "Well," she said, "honestly, it shouldn't, but I can't tell you, it's your body. I don't know your body, so I can't tell you that it won't, but it
Mhm.
shouldn't." Right. And so then hearing them take the tweezers and pull them out, they saturated it with some peroxide, and then pull them out, and then they plink them in this little metal bowl, and you could hear the staples going in, right?
Mhm.
And it was just wild. So there were little things like that that just felt like, but I wasn't doing anything, just going to follow-up appointments. I mean, I barely got out of pajamas. I would just, get showered every day, put on a new pair of pajamas, read. I started reading the devotional, Believe Bigger by Believe Bigger by Marshawn Evans Daniels. So that was one of the things that brought me through. Listening to books on tape on Audible. Many people had gifted me Audible, gift cards so I could buy some things, and just I would just lay there and listen to things and often fall asleep. But I mean, yeah, so no social life for quite a while. But it was interesting because I only had short-term disability for 6 weeks. And I thought, there's no way my head is gonna be healed in 6 weeks. But it was. Like, it blew my mind. Like, the resiliency of the human body, right? Like,
6
I was
weeks.
back at work in 6 weeks.
They give you longer for a C-section.
I know,
That's
I know.
crazy.
I just knew that I wasn't gonna be like, it was just there were so many dynamics to this that were really crazy, but yeah, I couldn't conceptualize that, and I was like, "Am I really in it?" And of course I wanted to, but at the same time, I was like, "This was a major surgery. This was like a 4-hour surgery." You know, I was heavily under, and it was just crazy. I mean, I've got so many stories for days. But again, I'm just so grateful that I had a great medical team, had an amazing husband. My parents couldn't even come because it was COVID. And, the hospital wasn't letting, they barely wanted to let my husband in. They told my husband when he checked me in, you can go home. We'll call you when it's time to pick her up. And my husband was like, "I'm not going anywhere." He was like, "I'll be here until they tell me your surgery, is and you're
Mhm,
in recovery." So he went and hid out in the cafeteria
mhm.
until he got the call saying that everything was fine, and then he went home. But they wanted to keep me for 6 days, and I told my husband, I was like, "I'm not gonna be here for 6 days." He was like, "Well, Courtney, if they want you to be there, you need to." I was like, "No." I was like, "I just know my body and I'm gonna be ready." And I went home in, like, I think 2 or 3 days. I had
Wow.
to, like I said, they had to do some occupational therapy, some tests and things to make sure that I had my balance and all these different things. And I remember the nurses saying, wow, like they were amazed. They were like, we usually don't have people that are this like vibrant after surgery.
Right.
But I just, it was God. It was
I was
God.
just gonna say no, but God.
It was
But
all
God.
God. Yeah. It was amazing. I remember the doctor standing at the foot of my bed after they brought me from surgery into a room, into ICU for monitoring for that, 24 to 48 hours, and there's 3 of them standing at the bottom of my bed. I think it was, like, the anesthesiologist, my neurosurgeon, and another doctor, and he was just smiling, like beaming, because he was asking me some questions and I was joking. And he said something about, I know it's not going to feel something about the staples and stuff like that. And I was like, oh, it's okay. I've already ordered a wig, and all this kind of stuff. Like I was just, it was just a thing, right? I was just like, up and very alert and with it. And they were just so pleased, that I had
Mhm.
come through so well. Yeah, I don't know. Every time I retell the story, so many different thoughts and emotions come up.
Mhm.
Um, but I always go back to that gratefulness, just being like, just super grateful about thriving and doing so well right now. So,
And I want to ask you this, and just to be clear, so when you did the surgery, you had 4 tumors. Do you still were they able to get? I know you said they didn't get all of the one. So how
mhm.
many were they able to take out?
They only performed surgery on one tumor, and that is the one that was sitting on my optic nerve. They were unable to get that, so there's still residual of that tumor that remains. And then I have 3 other tumors that are kind of in different places in my head. So,
Okay.
with them being benign, that's good. However, having a tumor in your brain, like you said, they can still lead to aneurysm. It can still need to block nerves and vessels and all different types of issues.
Mhm.
So they definitely don't want them to grow. So about a year later, around the February, March, I had a radiation oncologist that I was seeing, and he suggested that I get what's called proton therapy treatment, which is really like an elevated form of radiation. And it was initially, they were only going to go treat the one tumor, but they decided after conferring with my medical team to treat them all. So they treated all 4 tumors. So that was getting into this. They had to do a mask. I have the mask sitting over there. They had to fit a mask, a mold to my face. I had to have it made specially. And then I'd have to sit in under this machine that would send the beams, and I had to be very still. I was strapped down. That mask was so claustrophobic. I remember them trying to put it on me for the first time, and I was like, wait, wait, because you just feel like you're not going to be able to breathe, and it's just
Mhm.
crazy. But I'd have to sit under for 15, sometimes 20 minutes, depending on how they were treating that day to send the beams in all the different directions for the tumors. The expectation was that it could not shrink the tumors, but it would keep them from growing more,
Mhm.
right? So I had to do that 30 consecutive days. So my husband had to drive me every day after work to Emory because I couldn't drive myself and I didn't want to, mess up his work schedule. So we went every day after work. So, and most times we wouldn't get home until like 10 or 11 o'clock at night. And then if the machines were down or broken, sometimes it could be later than that. So it was a real interesting thing, but we got through that and I rang the bell. And when we talk about emotional toll, people ring the bell when they complete their cancer treatment. And I
Mhm.
felt this overwhelming sense of um, what was it? Really just feeling sorry that, a lot of the women that I was in treatment with they had cancer. I don't have cancer. I didn't have cancer. My tumors were benign. And I remember sitting in the waiting room with the mom of a lady that was also being treated. And she said, "So what type of cancer do you have?" And I said, "I don't have cancer." And I remember the look on her face as if she thought maybe I was in denial or something. And I was like, "Yeah, I don't all my tumors are benign." They just wanted to treat because they felt like it would work in terms of, keeping, them from growing and different things like that. And so just some of the effects that I was seeing in some of the other women that were being treated, was really hard for me. But again, that made me see how God had just, worked something so different in my situation, and I couldn't help but be grateful, but it made me sad for the other women. So when I went to ring the bell, I almost felt guilty. That's the word I was trying to come up with,
Mhm.
guilty, that I was ringing a bell for something that didn't necessarily signify the same thing for me as it did for them. And that was kind of when I knew mentally I probably needed more support and therapy
Mm.
because I didn't need to undercut or undermine what I had been through, right? Just because
Mhm.
I don't have cancer doesn't mean that this was any less had any less emotional toil or, effect on me mentally and certainly physically. So yeah, I tried. I went to, my insurance had, a place that I could call and they pair you up. You could look at the credentials of all the people who were available to you. I met with 3 different people and it didn't work. Like, I don't know what it was. And I thought, well, maybe it's me. But I mean, I get things. I think the first woman told me, well, when she was like, "Well, what are you here for?" And I was like, "I had brain surgery and I'm doing well, but I just feel like I need some extra support, blah, 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 that kind of stuff." She goes, "Well, I'm going to tell you, there's no magic pill." And when she said that, I was just like, did a therapist just say that to me? Like, for real? Like, I was so confused, right? I mean, I don't know. It was weird.
I'm
I
like, that
never
was
saw
her
her again.
intro. Like,
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
up
I
here.
never,
I'm just imagining like your face was probably like, seriously, like that's
yeah.
welcome. That's how weird.
No empathy, no compassion. I don't know if she was having a bad day, I'm not quite sure, but that first experience was a little bit daunting, and I thought,
Mhm.
but my best friend is a social worker, and she convinced me to do it. She's like, "Give it a try. I think that was just a bad seed. Try someone else, they're all different. They all have different
Mhm.
bedside manners." I tried it again. That woman, she couldn't half remember my story. We met maybe 2 or 3 times, and every time we met, I would have to rehash what I said before, and that gave me anxiety. I was like,
Mhm.
"So I don't feel like you're listening to me. You're not taking notes. You're not absorbing. I'm telling you the same story, 2, 3 times in a row. That's not for me." So I let that go. And, yeah, I just, so therapy was not a great experience at all. I was like, I can do better reading my Bible and praying and meditating. And that's what I did. I pulled up YouTube and pulled up some meditation videos and, tried to learn how to meditate effectively and that type of thing. And those were more helpful than talking to somebody who really wasn't fully entertaining what I had to say anyway. And that help had me feel like people, I think sometimes, especially women and minorities, feel like our situations are not taken seriously anyway. And so that was
Mhm.
the first time I ever felt that way. Right.
Mm. Yep.
And that was really hurtful. And I was like, I was like, I've never had to feel this way. And I can understand how people, when they say that, what they're talking about now,
Mhm.
when they feel like people just aren't, taking their claims or what they're going through seriously, or, giving them, I mean, if I come to you for something, obviously I need some help. Let's talk about the help that I need. That's going to look different than maybe some of the other clients that you're seeing, but that's for you, not for me, right? Like
Right.
I'm just here to get the help that I need. So that wasn't a good experience, from mentally. So yeah, that had me I had to dig deeper and
Mhm.
really embrace my, personal relationship with God a lot more than even I was before, because I was like, "Okay, Lord, I'm shown right now that this healing thing really is in you. Like there's no human person who's going to help me through this like you are. And so I need you. I need you to show up for me," and then that type of thing. So yeah, that was that was kind of what I was going through. Like they didn't even want to send me to like occupational therapy because they felt like I was doing too well. And I really needed occupational therapy because I lost the ability to type with my left hand because of the stroke that I suffered the following year.
That's what I was gonna say. And how did the stroke came after the surgery? So
Mhm.
was the stroke a result of something from the surgery or the tumor?
So the residual tumor that was left in this on this right eye was pressing against my carotid artery. And so it was
Mm.
causing what they call watershed stroke in that area of my brain. And so it was happening in my sleep. I had no idea. So this was like a couple of days after Christmas in December of 22, which happens to be my husband's birthday. We were out of town in Albany, Georgia, where my husband's family is, and we were just celebrating the holidays. And that day, naturally, it was his birthday, so I was excited to celebrate him and do things with him. But I woke up feeling like a truck had hit me, right?
Mm.
And although I was functioning, my body just didn't feel right, but I didn't have any frame of reference. You could not have told me that was a stroke. I've never known anyone to have a
Mm.
stroke, and I've certainly never experienced, those types of symptoms before. So my face wasn't, drooping. Like a lot of the
Right.
classic symptoms that you would have, that's not what I was having. The biggest thing that probably would have been an indicator for a medical professional was number one, knowing my history, and then knowing that this whole left side was really not feeling well. It wasn't impaired to the point where I couldn't walk or do anything, but it felt really bad. Right.
Mhm.
Um, my husband and I stayed because I was doing okay. I was like, this really couldn't be like anything that serious. So my
Mm.
husband's like, "Do you want to go home and go to the doctor?" I was like, "Well, we're going home, the next day anyway. I'll just go to urgent care when we get home." And literally, when we drove into our city, he took me straight to urgent care. And the doctor that was there was like, "Well, it probably is something neurological," but he never called it a stroke. He never identified it as a stroke or anything like that. He just said, "Go home, get some rest. If your blood pressure doesn't go down and you're still not feeling well, just call your doctor. I called my doctor the next day, the radiation oncologist. He was in clinic. He couldn't talk to me. I was telling them it wasn't resonating. They were like, well, I'll have him call you back. He never called me back. I mean, that type of thing. I went to the ER that Friday, and the woman in the ER, they did all the tests that they do. They check your heart, all that kind of stuff. And they're like, nobody said anything about stroke. Never. So it wasn't until like almost 3 or 4 weeks later, I went for my routine MRI. I had a follow-up MRI at Emory. And that same doctor that I called a couple of days after to talk to was the one who read that MRI. So my husband was with me that morning. I always have my MRI read, and then he reads the results right after. So I go up to his office. He invites me and my husband in. He goes out, comes back in, and he's like literally white faced. And he's like, we can't send you home. I'm like, what do you mean? He was like, the MRI shows that you've suffered several strokes. And he was like, so we can't send you home.
Several?
So thanks for confirming what I already knew from WebMD, but no medical professional ever confirmed, at urgent care or at the emergency room. So that day, it was a Friday, I remember, and it was like a 7 a.m. appointment. My husband had to call into work, and we were at Emory's ER all day long with them running test after test after test, trying to figure out what it was. And that's when they realized from some CT scans and other specialized scans that something was going on with that carotid artery.
Oh, they should have caught that though when you went in. That
Yeah, I would agree. But again, that's where, again, you have to and, it wasn't that I wasn't standing up for myself and saying, no, something's wrong, guys. But, when they've got the equipment and they're the medical professionals,
Mhm.
you would just expect them to know, right? But sometimes clinically, you don't present as things that they've seen before. And so if it's not textbook, they're thinking that's not it, right?
That's right. Hmm.
And
They just
that's
go by
really
the symptoms.
unfortunate. Yeah, it's
Hmm.
really unfortunate. So we have to take, our agency when it comes to our health and things like that, and know those signs and understand. Like I said, I didn't know anyone who'd had a stroke. So those like signs and symptoms weren't even really on my radar. Right.
Right.
But now they are. I'm very hypersensitive to it. And
Hmm.
if it happened to anyone around me, I would probably be able to identify it right away. But for myself, that's not something that I realized. But yeah, and I mean, at that point, he was like, well, if it's been like 3 weeks and you're still, moving around and kicking, we got to figure out what's going on. Because he said, even though I had suffered those strokes in December, I had suffered additional strokes probably as late as 2 days before I came in for that MRI. So there
Wow.
was still some activity going on, but it was
Hmm.
happening in my sleep, right?
Hmm.
And so yeah, it was so traumatic from the terms I'm like, okay, am I going to have another surgery? Like what's going to happen? All this kind of stuff. And so there went this whole medical tirade in and out of doctors' offices, specialists. I got a second opinion through my insurance, all these different things for them to try to figure out how they were going to resolve this, right? Like, was I at a risk? My thing was, am I going to go to sleep one night and not wake up?
Yep. Yep.
You
Right.
know,
Of course. And
because I
with
didn't know.
yeah, and with all, and I'm listening. I'm like, okay, with all of this, how did you come through it? Like we're in 2024 now. So
Hmm.
you had the brain surgery, you still are maintaining with tumors, you've had the several strokes. And as far as your health, like if you wouldn't have told this story, never would have guessed it.
No
How
one.
is it? How have you gone from that to where you are now? Let's talk about
Mm.
that.
Oh gosh. I mean, just laboring in the Lord, like literally, He has carried me through every single thing. So, acupuncture was one of the things that I sought. And that was from a friend who had kind of gone through a different medical thing. And she was like, you might want to check out acupuncture. I found a local acupuncturist and started going, and that helped me a lot physically feel better. And then it really helped with brain fog and headaches and different things like that that I was experiencing as a result of the strokes as well. I just had to be very, very vigilant about my health, like eating much cleaner, making sure one of the most important things was drinking water because they said, Courtney, if you do not stay hydrated, that is going to be, the thing that will cause the strokes. So they were like, so now I don't drink anything but water. I don't drink nothing else. Like there's no room for anything else. I just always focus on staying hydrated and drinking water. Every once in a while I'll drink some zero Gatorades or something like that for like electrolytes, but it's all water. Just staying hydrated. And anytime my body feels a little off, I'm like, let's just drink some water. It's probably some water. But yeah, for me, it was like really being very hypersensitive to my own health, right? We
Mhm.
didn't eat bad before, but we really, my husband and I both cleaned our diet up even more and we're just more, selective in the things that we chose to eat. Um, I wasn't feeling like working out. So I didn't probably start working out until maybe around the summer of last year. And then it was just walking on the treadmill, right? It wasn't anything major. It was
Mhm.
just getting some movement in. And I've kind of increased, time and, speed and different things like that and added some strength training. But I wasn't feeling like doing anything. And at that point, I was just like, I'm not going to push my body to do anything that I didn't want to do. But sleep has been certainly very important. Like I have to get in my sleep. So I don't play. When it's time to wind down in the evening, I go ahead and go to bed because I know that if I don't, I'm not going to be able to function the next day. So it's not even a
Mhm.
matter of like being tired. Like I won't be able to function and I need to be, I'm still working and I'm still building the business. I'm still doing all the things. And so I have to be present. So those are the main things: nutrition, exercise, the acupuncture, which I've kind of really laid off a little bit. I'm not needing it as much. But yeah, those were the main things. And then just staying plugged in, right? Like my schedule, I really had to get very serious about blocking off time. Like I don't work on Wednesday nights. That's Bible study. I don't work anymore on Sundays. I don't care what I do on Sunday. I don't have to do anything, but I'm not working. That's the type of thing. So just
Exactly.
prioritizing
Mhm.
self-care,
Mhm.
asking for help. If I don't feel like doing anything, I just say, honey, I can't do that today, or can you do that, or can you take care of that, or whatever. Just being, you know, speaking up a lot more for my needs and my desires and different things like that, and just not feeling like I had to do it all. There's a laundry service called Poplin. This is free, free advertisement marketing for them. I use them. I didn't do any laundry. I didn't, my body, like there's a whole lot of things I couldn't do. I lost my ability to type on the computer. So I really had to get that mobility back, in my fingers and different things like that. It, it's been a really interesting road. And then last year also, I was connected to a woman who is a book visionary, and she was doing an anthology for women for different things. And I saw a post and I felt compelled. And this is after I had the episodes with the therapist and wasn't getting the support I needed. And I thought maybe if I write about this, this might help me in terms of healing. So I wrote the chapter in this book anthology largely as a way to heal, right? A way to just get all my feelings out and tell my 3,000 word chapter, which is, not, just a portion, not
Mhm.
even of what I've been through, but it helped me just work through emotionally some of the things that I felt to get it all out, right? And to just say, what my perspective was on how I went through this or how I got through this, overcome, because I'm definitely an overcomer. During that time, I think, was that before my stroke or after? John Singletary, is that his name? He died of a stroke,
Mm-hmm.
the movie producer.
Mm-hmm.
There was a local newscaster named Jovita Moore in Atlanta who was just this beautiful beacon of light. She was diagnosed with a brain tumor right after I was, like a month after I had my surgery. A doctor in the same place that I went to, Emory. And yeah, she was diagnosed a month after I was, and she died before the summer of 21. So all this stuff was happening around me, but God was still keeping me and sustaining me. And I
Right.
thought, I'm here for a reason. I'm here for a purpose. That made me fight even more for my own healing and recovery, because I thought, if I wasn't supposed to be here after two back-to-back major medical things, I wouldn't be here.
That's right.
I wouldn't
That
be
is
here.
so. Mm-hmm.
So,
And with that, I know you just said you were part of a book anthology. Do
mhm.
you have any other books or products that you would like to let the audience know about, where they could tap into more about your story and your purpose?
Absolutely. So I do have several things. So I've created this quiz. It's called the Purpose Palette Persona Quiz. And it's really a resource for women to uncover that ideal blend of their own purpose, their poise, their passion, and their presence as it relates to their personal brand. So it's a really simple 4-question quiz, but that's a way that they can kind of come into my world and understand how I work with women to kind of, it's a really dynamic. And from the people who've taken it, I always get, oh, it's so insightful. I never thought about style in that way. I never thought about wardrobe in that way. So that's a free resource that people can take. I also have a weekly devotional that I author called Poise and Promises. And that's where, I really just use scripture and talk about faith and image and fashion, right? And style and how it all relates. And it gives people an opportunity to get encouraged and empowered. So that's something that people can subscribe to. And then I'm also selling my new book, the book anthology. Um, which is Stand Up Resilient Black Women Who Are Shaping the World with Their Faith, Volume 3. And we launched the last week in April and became an Amazon best-selling book.
All right.
And we became #1 in Black and African American Christian fiction. And yeah, so I'm super excited about that and the opportunity to share that, because it's not just my story. It's the story of 14 other women, and it's not all health related. The stories are all very different. The one common thread is the fact that we were resilient and we overcame, right?
Right.
And so that's something that I'm selling if, people are interested in reading those stories and being encouraged or anything like that. But you can always connect with me on LinkedIn. That's my primary platform where I encourage women leaders, women who are seeking more visibility and who are really wanting to elevate their image. And, I share tips, inspiration, all that good stuff. So yeah, those are some. I do have a presence on Instagram. It's not like, a top priority for me, but you will find some resources there as well. And then all the links are there that will lead to my devotional and to, I do a weekly newsletter on LinkedIn as well called Executive Style and Success, encouraging women leaders as well. So I'm just really all about that. And what has helped me in my business going through what I went through personally is I feel like now I can relate to people on a much deeper level, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like
Yeah.
it's beyond the clothes. Like
Mm-hmm.
the clothes, although we love it, those are just tools, right?
Yep.
Right. It's really about the mindset. It's really about our spiritual health
Yep.
and how we feel on the inside. And then once we know that and understand that, it's easy to then reflect that outwardly.
That's right.
So,
I
yeah.
love it. I love it. And what I'll do is I'll get all your links and all your information. So, listeners, at the end of the video, if you're watching, I'll have everything available for you to go and check out the merchandise and connect more so that you can pick up that book. Most definitely. I'm very interested in. You said it was an Amazon top seller the first week. That's
Yes.
awesome.
Very exciting.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
And
Thank you.
before we wrap up, I want to know, are there any last words of encouragement to anyone who may be going through a similar situation, or it could be health challenges or any other type of situations in life? What would be some words to encourage them to keep going?
Absolutely. I would love to share that, just bear in mind that sickness or any diversity or, that you're experiencing, it doesn't define your story, right? It's really just literally a chapter in the narrative of your life. And so you just have to trust in God's love and his plan, right? And know that even in those dark times, there's some hope, there's a path to healing. Embrace your journey, understand that every challenge that you face is an opportunity for growth and transformation. I think we're all very much stronger than we think, and your resilience will shine through if you will just meet God and let Him do the work, let Him carry you through that valley. You will come out on the other side and you'll be equipped with all the things that you need. So that's what I would love to leave with. Yeah.
That is awesome. Yes. Let God carry you through. Woo! I love it. I love your message. I love your story. Like God is with you. My
Yeah.
spirit just wants to just encourage you to,
Thank you.
stay faithful. God is faithful and He's got you. And the audience out there listening and watching, remember that too. God is faithful and God's got you. So as I like to close each of my episodes, before I close, let me thank you again. Let me thank
Thank
you for your
you.
time. Thank you for your story. Thank you for sharing your vulnerability and opening up to let us into your world. I really, really appreciate it.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Tracy. I appreciate it.
And I like to leave everyone with this powerful quote just to take along with you in your days. If you want to be sad, keep thinking about the past. If you want to be anxious and worried, think about the future. But if you want to be happy, focus on the present day and be grateful for what you have. This is Tracey D. Armstrong with What's Your Mess. Have a good one, y'all.
Thank you.